concept, which would be more complicated and more comprehensive. So what is this if it's that, and what is this? Is this is a standalone concept?
I'd be happy to answer that. And I appreciate the fact that you understand that this can stretch out over a period of time. And correct me if anything I say is incorrect going forward here. I understand that there has not, and Nadine, Janine can also help me here. I believe that there has not been traditionally in this county a history of a great deal of annexation. So I don't know that there will be a pre-annexation agreement reached anytime soon. Therefore, I'm not presuming that the county has a desire, and nor were we retained with the idea that there is a desire to annex anything beyond the current physical geographic boundaries of what is the city of Ukiah into county. We were brought in because there is at least one large retailer approaching both the city and the county simultaneously and sort of playing both sides against the other. That's a very unfortunate situation. And you each have new executive staff that has experience with this in other places and understands the great depth of developer agreements and how you can actually negotiate with developers and recover certain costs for infrastructure improvements, et cetera. They both rightly assumed that sales tax, which, because the city of Ukiah has a huge redevelopment area, and because the county's land that directly abuts both the city on the north and the south, tend to be in redevelopment, property tax is less of an issue here. These are redevelopment zones. Sales tax is a huge issue. So the question is, how do we take that big bear in the room, which is sales tax and the largest fluctuator in your budgets, and standardize it and smooth it at a time when we know nationally that sales taxes are dropping? So we were brought in to help you evaluate that. Going forward, I think that the items that I have outlaid in that memo to Tom are things that in principle both parties have already talked about. They talked about them over the last couple of years before we were brought in board, and we talked about them now. I think what we brought was a different perspective on it, because we evaluated what's been successful up and down the state and brought those models to bear, also keeping in mind that we would like to formulate something that can be utilized again if you want to use it in Fort Bragg, or if you want to use it in Willits or in another incorporated jurisdiction. And while I know you're county council, I think that one of the reasons that we're not trying to involve council so early is when you're just having discussions and you're trying to get precepts on the ground, there's not a lot for county council to do. County council will come back with a body of a document, and that document will then get born and fleshed out some more. It's a little premature for that at this juncture. We are actually taking this in a very different direction than, and I, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Mike, I think that it looks very different today than what you had, some of the concepts that you had talked about a couple of years back. Mm-hmm. So it really has evolved, because much more consideration has been given to negative cash flow situations for both parties. If there are emergency situations for both parties, we really have talked through at great length the scenarios up and down. I don't think as much thought was given to that before, and I think we've uncoupled the annexation agreement, the long-term development, and really tried to focus just simply on the land use patterns. How do you want to use your land most effectively?
Well, I think all those things make sense. I'd like, if council has any comments, to make any at this point.
No, I don't have anything to say. You know, both Mr. Rapport and I, city attorney, and I have discussed this, and we're just waiting to be provided direction.
I just don't, given what you've just said, again, I don't see that there's any need, or maybe that there really is time with the board schedule between now and the end of the year to get a project of this magnitude completed by then, because there's so much business that we have between now and the end of the year. So I don't see the need to rush. And I guess I was a little concerned hearing that council hadn't been yet involved, and wanting to make sure that that is ground that's very carefully covered. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Colfax.
I appreciate your saying you see this as being rather different than previous discussions we've had. I'm kind of surprised to hear that this is, that the word large retailer is out there. I don't pay that much attention to what happens in Ukiah, but good part of it is on my screen. And then I hear land use, and when we talked about this, the last go around, it was mostly fiscal. I mean, it was mostly allocation of taxes in and distribution to the various entities, and I had some concerns about that. Now we have also add-ons. That's part of the discussion. Is that on the table?
It's not part of the discussions between the city and the county. It's
Okay,
something
but
I
it
wanted
is
the
something though
county-
that we are looking at, something that could
The county
obviously,
should
yeah,
consider.
and that seems to be, part of our hope and faith in the future of where we might be able to get some funding there, and making people pay for a business license and pay for taxes on buildings that have gone up that they haven't gotten permits for.